We all stand at a crossroads, don't we? A precipice where the known meets the unknown, and the comfortable whispers sweet nothings, while the challenging promises transformation. It's a moment of profound hesitation, a silent internal debate that plays out countless times in each of our lives. Should I take that leap? Apply for that impossible job? Start that daunting new project? Invest in that volatile market? Or perhaps, simply, confess my true feelings to someone important? This universal question, this agonizing dance with uncertainty, is not merely about making a choice. It's about confronting the very essence of who we believe ourselves to be and who we could become. Why do so many of us find ourselves paralyzed, teetering on the edge of potential, yet unable to step forward? It's not a lack of intelligence or even a lack of desire. It's something far more intrinsic, a deeply ingrained aversion to potential for loss, for failure, for the sting of regret that we anticipate might follow a misguided step. We're wired to seek safety, to preserve what we have, to avoid pain, and this primal instinct, while vital for survival in a harsh world, often becomes the invisible cage that prevents us from truly living, truly growing, truly experiencing the richness that lies beyond the immediate horizon of certainty. For too long, the narrative around risk has been one-dimensional, painted in broad strokes of recklessness or naive optimism. But what if there was a deeper, more sophisticated understanding of risk? What if navigating uncertainty wasn't a gamble, but an art form, a skill that could be honed, mastered, and leveraged to unlock extraordinary possibilities? This very question consumed a man named Richard Harris, an individual whose career as a financial journalist thrust him into hard, high-stakes decision-making, observing firsthand the fortunes made and lost, the empires built and crumbled, all on the bedrock of risk. He became obsessed with dissecting the mechanics of uncertainty, with understanding why some individuals and organizations consistently thrived in ambiguity, while others faltered. His journey wasn't just an academic pursuit. It was a deeply personal quest to unravel the paradox of human behavior when faced with the unknown, and to distill those complex dynamics into a usable framework for anyone seeking to live a more audacious, more fulfilling life. We're about to embark on a journey through profound discoveries, uncovering the truths that reshape our understanding of what it truly means to take a risk and, more importantly, how to take the right risks to transform your life. Before Richard Harris ever crystallized his groundbreaking insights into the art of risk, his world was defined by observing the relentless churn of financial markets and the often unpredictable decisions of those who operated within them. He was a spectator, a keen analyst peering into the opaque glass of corporate boardrooms and trading floors, documenting the triumphs and tragedies that unfolded daily. His professional life was a constant immersion in the outcomes of risk, but he watched from a distance, documenting the narratives of others. He saw the euphoria of speculative success and the devastating fallout of ill-considered gambles. This exposure, however, created a growing sense of unease within him, a nagging realization that despite the vast amounts of data, the sophisticated models, and the expert opinions, there was an elusive element at play, something more profound than mere probability calculations. The sheer randomness of outcomes, even for seemingly well-calculated ventures, perplexed him. Why did some highly qualified individuals, armed with superior information, consistently make poor decisions under pressure, while others, sometimes with far less apparent advantage, seemed to possess an almost intuitive knack for navigating treacherous waters? His frustration mounted not from a lack of information, but from an overabundance of it, much of which seemed to contradict itself or fail to predict actual events. The standard narratives of risk management felt hollow, sterile, and utterly disconnected from the vibrant, chaotic reality he observed. He witnessed companies, after years of meticulous planning, suddenly collapse due to a single unforeseen market shift, while agile startups, with minimal resources, pivoted on a dime and seized unexpected opportunities. This wasn't just about financial metrics. It was about human behavior, about the psychology of choice when the future is inherently unknowable. He saw friends and colleagues brilliant in their respective fields, remain stagnant in their careers, unwilling to pursue new roles that involved stepping outside their comfort zones, despite clear indicators that change was necessary for growth. Others, less outwardly brilliant but possessed of a quiet courage, would embrace transitions, even those fraught with peril, and emerge revitalized and more successful. This personal observation compounded his professional dilemma. It wasn't enough to just report on risk. He felt an urgent need to understand its true nature, to demystify it, and to unearth the underlying principles that separated those who mastered it from those who were mastered by it. He recognized that if this deeply human struggle with uncertainty could be unraveled, the implications would extend far beyond the financial markets, touching every aspect of life where a decision carries even a whisper of the unknown. His own journey, like many of ours, was punctuated by moments where the easy path felt compelling, but the voice of potential urged him toward a harder, riskier choice. This internal tension, amplified by his daily immersion in the world of high stakes, became the crucible from which his quest was born. He didn't just want to find risk. He wanted to transform our relationship with it, to move beyond fear and into a realm of informed, intelligent engagement. Harris's first major breakthrough came from a profound realization that shattered the conventional wisdom surrounding risk assessment. He observed that most people, whether in personal life or professional settings, approach risk as a monolithic entity, a singular force to be either avoided or braced against. This perspective, he discovered, was fundamentally flawed. His extensive research and countless interviews with successful risk-takers, from venture capitalists to extreme athletes, revealed a startling pattern. They didn't see risk as a single, undifferentiated threat. Instead, they instinctively or consciously broke it down into its constituent parts. The first crucial distinction Harris identified was between known risks and unknown risks. This might seem intuitive, but its practical application is transformative. He recounts the story of a seasoned mountain climber preparing for a difficult ascent. This climber meticulously assesses the known risks: the weather forecast, the structural integrity of the ropes, the team's physical conditioning, the specific rockfall zones, the availability of emergency shelters. These are factors that can be quantified, mitigated, or prepared for. They are the variables within a defined problem set. The climber doesn't ignore them. In fact, they dedicate an enormous amount of energy to understanding and minimizing them. They train for specific scenarios, carry redundant equipment, and continuously monitor conditions. This is where most traditional risk management stops, in the realm of the quantifiable and the predictable. However, Harris noted, the truly exceptional risk-takers went a step further. They understood that even the most exhaustive preparation could not account for everything. There would always be the unknown unknowns, the sudden, unpredicted microavalanche, the completely unexpected shift in atmospheric pressure, the unique psychological breakdown of a team member in a novel situation. These are the risks that cannot be predicted or prepared for in the same way. The genius, Harris argued, lay not in trying to predict these impossible-to-predict events, a futile endeavor, but in developing an adaptive capacity to respond to them when they inevitably arise. He gave another compelling example from the world of cybersecurity. A company might invest millions in firewalls, encryption, and threat detection systems to guard against known viruses and hacking methods. These are critical defenses against known risks. But the truly resilient companies Harris found were those that also foster a culture of rapid response, continuous learning, and improvisation, understanding that the next major threat would likely be something entirely novel, an unknown attack vector. They built systems not just to prevent known threats, but to adapt to unforeseen ones. This principle isn't about ignoring known dangers. It's about acknowledging their limits. It's about recognizing that while we must diligently manage the foreseeable, our true power in navigating uncertainty comes from cultivating flexibility, resilience, and a mindset of continuous improvisation for the unforeseeable. This insight completely reoriented the conversation around risk from one of static assessment to one of dynamic adaptation, laying the groundwork for a more sophisticated engagement with life's inevitable uncertainties. Yet, even with a profound insight into differentiating between known and unknown risks, Harris discovered that simply understanding this distinction wasn't enough. Many individuals and organizations still found themselves stuck, paralyzed by the sheer volume of potential unknowns, or overwhelmed by the complexity of managing known ones. This led him to a deeper truth, a critical second principle that revealed itself as he delved further into behaviors of truly effective risk-takers. The challenge wasn't just in identifying what you could and couldn't predict, but in understanding your risk budget, your capacity and tolerance for engaging with different types of uncertainty. The first principle provided a diagnostic tool. This second one offered a strategic framework. Harris observed that many people, in their earnest attempt to mitigate known risks, would exhaust their resources, their time, energy, financial capital, or emotional bandwidth, leaving themselves utterly depleted and vulnerable when an unknown risk inevitably emerged. He detailed the case of a mid-sized manufacturing company that meticulously optimized every aspect of its supply chain to reduce costs and increase efficiency, effectively minimizing known operational risks. They negotiated razor-thin margins with suppliers, streamlined logistics to eliminate redundancies, and operated with minimal inventory. From a traditional risk management perspective, they were exemplary. However, when a sudden, unforeseen natural disaster disrupted a key port, their entire finely tuned system collapsed. With no buffer, no alternative suppliers on standby, and no excess inventory, their production ground to a halt for weeks, costing them millions and nearly leading to bankruptcy. Their mistake wasn't in managing known risks. It was in failing to account for their overall risk budget. By over-optimizing for known efficiencies, they inadvertently depleted their capacity to absorb an unknown shock. Conversely, Harris presented the example of a successful startup founder who, despite operating with limited capital, deliberately built in optionality into their decisions. When faced with a choice between a cheaper, single-source software component and a slightly more expensive, open-source alternative with a larger developer community, they chose the latter. While the immediate known risk was higher cost, the founder understood this created a crucial buffer, an ability to adapt or pivot if the initial solution proved inadequate or the vendor failed. They weren't just managing risks. They were actively shaping their environment to create flexibility, allowing them to take bolder, more calculated risks in other areas because their overall vulnerability was managed. This principle goes beyond mere financial reserves. It extends to emotional resilience, social capital, and intellectual agility. It's about understanding that every decision, every commitment of resources, draws from a finite well. The master risk-takers, Harris concluded, didn't just identify risks. They actively managed their capacity to respond to all risks, known and unknown, by preserving a strategic surplus, an inherent adaptability that allowed them to engage with uncertainty not as a threat to be eliminated, but as a dynamic field to be skillfully navigated. This wasn't about being conservative or reckless. It was about being strategically prepared to embrace the unpredictable. The true aha moment for Richard Harris, the grand synthesis that brought all his observations and principles into sharp, actionable focus, wasn't just about categorizing risks or budgeting for them. It was a realization that the most profound and transformative risks in life, whether personal or professional, are not actually risks in the conventional sense at all. They are, in fact, strategic investments in potential, disguised as uncertainty. This unifying idea fundamentally reshapes our entire relationship with the unknown. Harris found that the conventional fear of risk stems from perception of potential loss, a zero-sum game where taking a chance means an equal chance of failure. But the individuals and organizations that truly thrived didn't operate from this fear-based paradigm. Instead, they viewed calculated engagement with uncertainty as the only pathway to truly significant growth and innovation. They understood that certainty, while comforting, often leads to stagnation, while intelligently confronting the uncertain opens doors to unforeseen opportunities. He illustrated this with the story of a renowned architect who, early in their career, turned down a lucrative, stable position at a prestigious firm to pursue a seemingly outlandish commission, designing an environmentally radical building using untested materials and unconventional methods. From a purely traditional risk assessment, this was a highly risky move, potential career setback, financial instability, and the very real chance of public failure. However, the architect didn't see it as a gamble. They saw it as an unparalleled opportunity to push the boundaries of their craft, to develop a unique skill set, and to establish a reputation for visionary thinking. They had, in essence, invested their limited early career capital, time, reputation, skill, into a high-potential venture. This wasn't about hoping for the best. It was about strategically allocating resources toward an outcome that, while uncertain, promised disproportionately higher returns in terms of experience, learning, and future opportunities than any safe path could offer. The building, of course, became a landmark, launching their career into the stratosphere. Harris emphasized that this investment in potential mindset requires a critical shift, moving from asking what could I lose to what could I gain and what am I willing to invest to achieve it. It means understanding that discomfort is often the precursor to growth, and that the greatest opportunities rarely present themselves in neatly packaged, risk-free forms. The grand synthesis is that risk isn't an opponent to be avoided. It's a raw material, a fuel for innovation and personal evolution. When we learn to identify our knowns, manage our unknowns, and allocate our resources, our time, energy, attention, and capital, not just to mitigate threats, but to actively invest in our highest potential, then risk ceases to be a frightening unknown and becomes a very engine of our progress, a deliberate act of creation in the face of an uncertain future. It's the realization that true security isn't found in avoiding all risks, but in building capacity to embrace and leverage the right ones. So, we journeyed through the intricate landscape of risk, from the paralyzing universal question of hesitation to Richard Harris's profound synthesis that risk, properly understood, isn't a barrier but an investment in your own potential. We've seen how the ability to distinguish between known and unknown risks allows for strategic preparation, shifting from reactive fear to proactive engagement. We've explored the critical importance of understanding and managing your risk budget, ensuring you have a resilience and adaptability to weather the inevitable storms while still pursuing transformative opportunities. And finally, we've arrived at the liberating insight that the most impactful risks are not gambles, but carefully considered allocations of your most precious resources, your time, your energy, your creative spirit, towards outcomes that promise exponential growth, even if their path is initially shrouded in uncertainty. This isn't just theory. It's a blueprint for a life lived with intentionality and courage. It's an invitation to stop passively observing your potential and start actively creating your future. Imagine the opportunities you've let slip by, the conversations you never started, the projects you never launched, all because a perceived risk felt too great. Now, imagine a different approach, one where you dissect that fear, understand its components, and then strategically invest in the possibilities that lie beyond it. This isn't about throwing caution to the wind. It's about cultivating a sophisticated relationship with uncertainty, one where you are the artist, sculpting your destiny with each deliberate decision. The profound transformation begins not when you eliminate risk, but when you master the art of engaging with it. It's time to translate understanding into action. Your journey to embracing the art of risk starts now. It begins with a choice to step beyond the comfort of the familiar and into the exhilarating terrain of your untapped potential. Make that choice today and commit to being a part of a community that refuses to settle for safe but strives for the significant.